Mjøsa is Norway's largest lake. It's 117 kilometers long and used to be an important transportation route between the capital Oslo in the south and Trondheim in the north. For 8 weeks every summer, the Skibladner, the world's oldest working paddle steamer, plies the waters here. It's also known as the White Swan of Lake Mjøsa. It sails the entire length of the lake, from its home port of Gjøvik to Lillehammer in the north and Eidsvoll in the south. The area is thinly populated. It's a journey through pristine nature, bathed in midsummer sunlight. For the Skibladner, the season begins with the summer solstice in June. Gjøvik is a small town on the western shore of Lake Mjøsa and was founded in 1861, 5 years after the Skibladner's maiden voyage. Nowadays, in the summer, it makes a round trip on alternate days to the north of the lake and to the south.
Verdens eldste hjuldamper som fremdeles går i regulær rutetrafikk.
The steamer is named after the magical ship of the god Freyr in Nordic mythology. It was built by dwarves, always had wind in its sails, could travel over sea and land, and was large enough for all the gods and their armor. It could also be folded up and kept in a pocket. The modern Skibladner is manned by seasonal workers. Harald Rasmussen is its captain.
Hvert år så må det ansettes ca. 40 mennesker.
Every year we hire about 40 people. There's a core group on deck and in the machine room who come back year after year. Most are retired sailors who have stopped sailing the oceans and enjoy this little summer job. I'm also a pensioner, but still like sailing on Lake Mjøsa. I've been doing it for 10 years now. Chief Engineer Einar Klavenes and his assistant Øyvind Vettegren are also retirees. They both live on the south coast, but spend their summers on the Skibladner, for the most part below deck. I'm here because I like working with steam engines, and I get a little pocket money. There aren't many steam engineers in Norway. We don't grow on trees.
Så vi vokser ikke på trær.
The Skibladner is heading for its first port of call on the eastern shore of the lake. Its speed averages 12 knots, or 22 kilometers an hour. During the 1.5-hour journey, Øyvind entertains the passengers. Steam engines are not his only passion.
You're the prettiest thing I've seen, but the big piece that I can be is a good heart. Trying to hold you there. Why don't you keep me waiting for the start of the racing? Here's the thing I say, the things I want to do. Oh yes, I can.
The southern end of Lake Mjøsa is about 80 kilometers north of the capital Oslo. There's fertile farmland around the lake, where cereals, vegetables and fruit are grown. More than 20 species of fish live in the lake, including trout, a favorite of Norway's anglers. Spinning tackle like these date back almost 2 centuries, and they're still the best way to catch a trout. Svein, Gunnar, Einar and Roger from the Gjøvik Anglers Club make their own trout spinners, out of a sense of tradition, and because no one manufactures them anymore in their original form. We often make bait kits like this, usually before the start of the season, in March or April. The season begins here on the lake on the 1st of May, but sometimes we have to make more to replace the ones we lose. It takes skill to catch trout, and the knowledge is passed on from generation to generation. My great-grandfather came fishing on Lake Mjøsa, so it's in my genes, so to speak. We teach new anglers, or they learn from each other. A trout doesn't stand much of a chance once it's bitten on one of these. When a fish comes along and takes the bait, the sleeve is released. This part moves away, and just the hooks are stuck in the fish's mouth. They're going to spend the long summer evening fishing out on the lake. The Skibladner is heading north to Lillehammer, where the Winter Olympics were held in 1994. Just beyond the fisherman's cottage, the weather changes. The wind comes up and it starts to rain. A green winter, that's what they call a cool and overcast summer in Norway. The wheel is out on deck and unprotected, which is unusual and not always very pleasant. When the steamer was new, there were no modern devices such as a telephone or radio connecting the captain to the engine room. You just had to yell and holler from up top to down below. That's why the captain and skipper were outside, whatever the weather. It's all right as long as it's summer and it's warm. But when the frosts come in the autumn, it's not so nice. But in those days, it was quite normal. And since we want to keep the boat the way it was, we adopt the old-fashioned ways that go along with it. Bodil Burud spends her summers working on the Skibladner and her winters working in a ski hotel in the mountains near Lillehammer. I feel good outdoors. I love nature and the wind and the weather. I also do lots of sport, and that makes you tough. And I like sailing. I used to live on a fjord, Hardanger Fjord, and Mjøsa is a fairly good substitute. Lots of women work on ships nowadays, but there was only one other boatswoman on the Skibladner before me. I feel great on board. I like boats and the sea and water. And I enjoy sparring with the lads. Despite the bad weather, there are plenty of passengers on board for the return journey from Lillehammer to Gjøvik. For the fishermen, the best part of the day is just beginning. When the snows have melted and the level of the lake has risen, the best place to fish is south of Gjøvik, about an hour away by motorboat. The tried and tested method of trout fishing here is trolling, and the bigger the fish, the better. There's an old Norwegian unit of measurement called the bismapunt. It's about 6 kilos. So if you catch a fish that weighs more than 6 kilos, we call it a punning. And then you get a gold pin. It's a great thing to win.
Så en fisk på 6 kilo, hva skal jeg si, en...
The problem is, there are about 200 anglers on Lake Mjøsa, but only 15 or 20 fish of that size. Svein and many other locals use old-fashioned wooden fishing rods. It's a tradition on Lake Mjøsa that developed over many generations. They had this kind of equipment here in the early 19th century. It first appeared around 1820, so it's pretty old. This kind of fishing may be a long-standing tradition, but it's in danger of dying out. Many people now prefer modern tackle, but some of us enjoy keeping old traditions alive.